Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Victoria. And if you're joining us for the first time today, my name is Carrie Hunter, and I'm the spiritual director of the center. And it's lovely to have you with us. And if you've been here on many Sundays in the past, then welcome back. It's great to see you again. We, of course, are open now in our new facility at the Cook Street Village in Victoria, and just so happy to see everybody again and to be in one another's presence. And we're following all of the protocols for social distancing and just doing everything that we should do to keep everything healthy and safe for everyone. So if you are watching and you'd like to join us in our facility, we're there every Sunday. And we have a meditation service at 10:30 and then our regular celebratory service at 11 a.m. We'd love to have you there with us. So welcome today. My topic today is God Without Borders, and I'm continuing a series that is loosely based on Deepak Chopra's book, The Future of God. We live in a time where there are so few people who really, really have a deep and abiding faith in God. And there are many who have lost faith. There are many who've lost hope. And certainly we live in troubled times right now. And it's a time when we really need to have that faith in a higher power and the faith that everything is going to be all right. Because that's what makes it so. The more that we believe in that, the more that we focus upon that, the greater this becomes. We begin to manifest this in our lives. So as I was thinking about my topic this past week, I was remembering a time about 20 years ago when I had a contract with an American entrepreneur, and he had an unusual family. Both his father and his brother had enormous churches in the United States. One was his father, I believe, had a congregation of 12,000 families, and his brother had a congregation of 8,000 families, which is mind-boggling to think about. And Steve, being the entrepreneur, had a deep and abiding faith. However, he was into other things as well. And his big job at his father's church in LA at Christmas time was to bring in live camels and donkeys and cattle and to basically set up a live nativity scene, which was just enormous, and people came from all over to see it. And he used to tell me about these things. And one day we were talking, and because we talked a lot about our faith, and we were totally at opposite ends of the pole when it came to what we believed. And I challenged him a little bit because I was talking to him about the Bible, and he said that he believed it was the inspired word of God and that every word in it was true. And I talked to him about the various translations and some contradictions and some things that I just couldn't believe. And he said, well, he just really believed it all, every bit of it. And I said, well, in 400 BC, the Council of Nicaea met, and a group of priests decided what was going to go into the Bible. There were many manuscripts. I think it was Greg Braden who said that it was like putting 2,000 manuscripts on a table, and everything that fell off the table stayed on the floor, and the things that stayed on the table went into the Bible. And he said, well, I just believe that God told the priests exactly what had to go in the Bible. So I talked to him about the Dead Sea Scrolls and the translations of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and on how they have a different view of God. That God is within us, the kingdom is within us, which Jesus also said. But also that we have all of this power within us to do so many amazing things with our lives. And he said, oh, I can't believe in any of that stuff. He said, I know that God put in the Bible what was supposed to be there. And I said, well, Steve, do you think that it might be possible that if God felt that that was what people needed to understand at the time, that God now thinks that we are capable of a greater understanding, and that's why the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, and that's why we're being open to totally different beliefs in the translations. And he was very quiet for a moment, very pensive. And then he said, I never really thought about that. And I said, well, what do you think? And he was quiet again for another moment. And then he said, no, I just can't go there. He said, I live in this really comfortable little box. And I really like it there. I feel really safe there. I can't go outside that box. And I said, well, I'm outside the box and I like to dance on top of it. And we both laughed and we agreed to disagree. And we were great friends in spite of that. But I was thinking of that because Deepak Chopra talks about God in a box. And he talks about religion and spirituality, and that religion is in a box. All of the dogma, everything is in a box. And the thing about having it in a box is that we can control that. We can control the box. We can seal it up. We can tie string around it. We could put rope around it if we want to. We can put it on a shelf somewhere out of sight and bring it down and just open it up and peek in now and then, or just, take a little bit out of it of what we want now and then. That's religion with all of the dogma attached to it. Spirituality, on the other hand, is God without borders. Spirituality does not have dogma attached to it. Spirituality is absolutely enormous. It is this power that is everything and everyone. And it lives inside each of us. And we get to use it. We're using it all the time anyway, for good or for bad. But when we really understand that we have this power and we can consciously use it, it means that we can really change our lives and change them in a dramatic way. And so looking at spirituality, it has this great freedom about it. And it has a greater love for all of humanity. And when you think about it, and think about this God up in the sky that, we were probably told about when we were little children, and that many people still believe in, this old man up there on a throne somewhere who's judging us, who would punish us if we're doing something bad. It's kind of hard to believe that. And I saw a woman on television being interviewed one day. She was actually a student in university. And she was asked if she believed in God, and she said, absolutely not. She said there could not be a God that could be a punishing God. That if you do something wrong, that you're going to wind up in hell and burn forever. She said, when I was a child, if I did something that was considered to be bad, my parents didn't throw me in the fireplace. And I thought that was an interesting way of looking at things. She said, that she just couldn't go to that place where she could believe that there was an entity that would do this to anyone in humanity. And I thought a lot about that because I think that's what has taken a lot of people away from their churches, away from religion, even away from spirituality. People just are not wanting to even think about these things because it's so hard to understand. It's so incomprehensible. But when we think of God without borders, we're looking at something that goes back so far. I mean, how old is the universe? Is it 3 trillion years old? And before that, it was just nothing but a mass of whirling gases that began to take form, that materialized into the sun and the moon and the stars and the planets. And this enormous universe, and possibly more universes, ever expanding, 100 million miles a minute. New stars being formed every minute. That is something that is beyond comprehension for us. And at the same time, it tells us about the wonder of a magnificent power, something that is far beyond anything we can imagine. And yet, we're made out of that same stuff. Quantum physicists will say we're all made out of stardust. Whatever has made the stars has made our human bodies. And the power that is out there in the universe is inside each of us for us to use. Some of us may be concerned that our faith is not strong, that we kind of waver here and there. and that it's a reason to not believe or a reason to not explore spirituality. And here's the thing. There's an amazing story about Mother Teresa. And I mean, everybody knows who Mother Teresa is, now a saint. She did so much amazing work in Calcutta at her mission there, where she looked after the poorest of the poor and the sickest of the sick. And in each of them, she said that she saw Jesus, that she looked at them as she held them and held them as if she were holding the Master in her arms. And what really astonished the world in 2007 when her letters were released and made public was that she suffered from a lack of faith in that God in a box. And in one of her letters that she wrote to a priest, she said, Jesus has a special place in his heart for you. She said, I look and I don't see. I listen and I don't hear. Imagine the pain that she must have felt, feeling like that. And at the same time, not understanding that this power within her, this divine guidance had led her to this remarkable, remarkable journey where she cared for so many people, where she influenced people all over the world. I love that she said, I am God's little pencil, writing a love letter to the world. Isn't that beautiful? God's little pencil, writing a love letter to the world. And she was struggling to find God, not knowing that God was without borders, was not in that box, that God was ever available, that God was in her, as her, working through her, the same way that it is working in, through, and as us all the time. And so, if we're seeking, if we're wanting to find God, we have to look outside that box. And we need to look way beyond it, beyond the borders. And that's where we're going to find this holy presence, the creator of all that is. It reminds me of a story that I really love, and it's about this presence that is hidden for so many of us. God wanted to plant spirituality somewhere where it would be difficult to find. And so he called his brightest and best angel, Gloria, to come and chat with him. And he said, I have this challenge, and I'm not sure where I should put spirituality, where I should put spirit. And she said, well, I think you should put it up high, up in the stars. It will be beautiful there, and no one will ever think to look there. No one will ever find it. And God said, oh, no, there will come a day when humanity will find its way up into the stars. Life will be so advanced. I have to find a safer place for it. And so he called upon Lucinda, his second most intelligent angel and brightest angel. And she said, I know where to put it. Put it at the bottom of the sea. No one will ever find it there. And God said, no, that won't work, because one day humans will find their way to the bottom of the sea, and they'll find it there. And Michael, his least bright angel, happened to overhear the conversation. And Michael said, well, I have an idea. Why don't you just put it in the human heart? And God said, that is brilliant, Michael. No one would ever think to look for it there. Isn't that what we're called to do? To go inside our hearts, inside our heart centers, to find that divine love, that energy, that beauty, that grace that lives within us, in the human heart. You know, we live at a time where most are tired of a punishing God. It's very difficult to believe that God is going to put people in hell if they don't live a good life. And at the same time, we have choice. We have choice about how we're going to live. And when we're living knowing this God without borders, we know that we can choose to use this power for our good. We choose to use it to create better lives for ourselves and for others. Mother Teresa was doing that. She just didn't know it. She didn't quite get how it was working, and was possibly one of the greatest examples of this that there could ever be. And so when we're looking at our spiritual nature and knowing that we are the creators or co-creators of our good, God is co-creator with us. I remember somebody once saying, if you're using the metaphor of a pilot and co-pilot, make sure that God is the pilot and not the co-pilot in your plane. So we need to look to God first, and that God without borders, the all-powerful, all-knowing. There are 3 worlds of God, Deepak Chopra writes about. The first is the material world. It's the world that we're really familiar with because we see it around us all the time. We believe in what we can see, sort of Newtonian physics. Seeing it is believing it, touching it, smelling it, being aware of it with our senses. And it's a place where, there's kind of black and white. There's good and there's evil. There are people who don't deserve good things in their lives. We live in judgment. It's really an antiquated place to be. And the next level of consciousness, or the next level of God, the next world of God, is the subtle world. And in that subtle world, things become different. They're not black and white. There's more of a gray area. The thing is that we become more understanding. We get to understand that if someone is doing something that we consider to be evil or bad, that we need to look beyond the act itself and know that inside that person, God exists, Spirit exists. And we don't know what it is that they have been through in their lives that has placed them in the place that they are, where they are doing the things that they are doing. As Marianne Williamson says, if you knew enough about anyone, you could forgive them. And so that subtle world is a place where we learn to forgive, to just forgive and let go, not to carry things around with us, not to poison ourselves with the toxicity of anger or hatred or judgment. We need to forgive. And that's where we find forgiveness, is in that place. And we find insight. We start to look beyond what it is that's right in front of us. And we gain insight into what it is that is causing things to happen. And we learn to trust our intuition. That's divine guidance, our intuition. That's in that subtle world as well. That's where everything comes from a place of love, where we learn to love our way through our experiences, where when we're going through challenges, we know that there is hope. Not only hope, we know that there is a better way on the other side of those challenges, and that we get to create them. We create them with our thoughts. Our thoughts become things. Our thoughts create our realities. We really need to understand that. We create what we call a mental equivalent, a picture, a vision of what it is we want our lives to look like, what we want our world to look like, and then we hold on to that image. We don't let it slip away, because when it slips away, then it stops the creative process. And so we need to keep our focus on all that is good and true and beautiful, and know that when we do that, that we're creating a different place to live on this earth, and a different life for ourselves. And the third world of God that Deepak Chopra talks about is the transcendent world. That's where we truly understand oneness. That's when we realize that we all have this same power within us, every one of us, and we all have equal amounts of it. And that power is the same in each of us. And so that's what makes us brothers and sisters to one another. That's what makes us one with everyone on this planet. And if we could but see that and understand that, our attitudes about life and about humanity would be so different. That's where we get into a place where we can give unconditional love to everyone, no matter what. It's a place where we can live in a state of calm, a state of happiness, of joy, of thanksgiving, gratitude, a place of grace. I love the word grace. I love the feeling of being in a state of grace. When we're there, everything in our lives is so much easier. The thing is, most of us live somewhere in the middle, in the subtle world, or maybe we live in the middle and the muddle, going back and forth. It's a challenge for us to be in that higher place all the time. But the thing is, that's what we need to be striving for. That's where our path is leading, to a higher consciousness, to a place of great self-awareness, to a place of complete faith, complete belief in this power, this God, that goes by many names. I'm using the term God here primarily, or spirit, because Deepak Chopra's book is about the future of God, and he uses God throughout. But God goes by many, many names. And you can see and hear if you look and you listen. And that's what we are being called to do. As our faith grows, we open up. We open up to this beautiful reality. There's an old hymn. The words, or the title of it, went through my mind as I said that. My God is real, for I can feel it deep in my soul. How wonderful. How wonderful to be able to say that and to know it. My God is real, for I can feel it deep in my soul. God without borders is what it's all about. God without borders is you. You are an expression of the divine, an unlimited expression of the divine. And there is unlimited potential ahead of you when you know this, when you understand this, when you focus upon it, when you use it in your life. Knowing that you are an expression of God sets you free. And when we know this, we are free at last, free at last, free at last, living in love, in understanding, in compassion, and in grace. And so it is. Thanks for being with us today. And if you feel moved to make a donation to our center, please go to the donate button at the top of our website page, www.cslvictoria.org, or you can send an e-transfer to welcome@cslvictoria.org, or send a check to the address that is on our website. We appreciate everything that you give. We appreciate who you are and all that you do. Because of you, we have been able to keep our center alive and thriving during these challenging times. And we know that you are thriving as well. God bless you all. And I look forward to seeing you again. And so it is.